You may think you know the Browns, but off camera, tensions have been simmering for years. One seemingly quiet action ignited a chain of events that rocked the family to their core, revealing secrets, struggles, and feelings fans don't get to see often. How far will personal boundaries, loyalty, and love be pushed in this family drama? You won't want to miss a moment of it. Press play to get started. At times, even the most well-coiffed families have secrets that come out only when they're put under scrutiny. The Brown family, familiar to millions of viewers on Sister Wives, has long intrigued viewers with their bizarre home life, large compounds, and the delicate ballet of polygamy. But behind the cameras, beyond the forced smiles and scripted dialogue, there's a tale much more intimate, unvarnished, and emotionally intense than many could have ever envisioned. This is a tale of love, loyalty, power, and the hard-won balance between family solidarity and individual freedom, a tale that would be played out not on the soundstage, but in the most public of places, the courtroom. What does it look like when years of unvoiced frustrations, silent grievances, and smoldering tensions finally meet up with legal documents and official proceedings? How does a family walk the thin line between personal conflict and public opinion? And above all, how do people battle for acknowledgement, respect, and justice in attempting to hold on to those whom they love most? For the Browns, these were questions they could not escape, and the answers would forever redefine their family. At the heart of it all is Christine Brown, a woman whose patience, love, and devotion to her children and home had been tried and tested for years. Christine had spent years of her life cultivating relationships, juggling responsibilities, and holding up the complex framework of her family. But beneath the surface, a widening tension had set in, a silent frustration that her voice too often fell on deaf ears, her opinions discounted, and her contribution to key family decisions downplayed. For Christine, it was not merely a matter of disagreement over property or money. It was about being heard, noticed, and honored in a home where power rested in one man's hands. Kody Brown, the family patriarch, was presented with a whole different battle. He had dedicated decades of his life to establishing the family dynasty, managing their property, and trying to keep the peace among 4 wives and 18 children. Leadership in a polygamous home, he believed, required making tough choices, sometimes without consulting others to avoid upsetting the family apple cart. But the line between protection and control became more and more blurred, and measures deemed necessary by Kody were ever more seen as overreach by those nearest to him. The tension between autonomy and family monitoring was soon to be put to test in ways neither Christine nor Kody could have envisioned. Their battle in the courtroom is a story of multifaceted feeling, human frailty, and the ultimate difficulties of reconciling loyalty with self-respect. As Christine pursued her complaints in court, she exposed years of emotional tension, moments of frustration, loneliness, and exclusion that had accumulated in secret behind closed doors. Kody, on the other hand, stood by his tactics with a combination of determination and frustration, attempting to defend choices that, as much as they were made in protection of the family heritage, had opened deep emotional fault lines. Each hearing, each testimony, and each interaction became a mirror of the delicate dance of authority, fairness, and love within a family unlike any other. But the tale doesn't stay contained within the courtroom. Its ripple effects spilled over into children, co-wives, and the family at large. Christine's children grappled with how to hold on to relationships with both their mother and stepfather figure, wrestling with loyalty, trust, and the emotional destruction of public fighting. Robin and the other wives, Mary, found themselves caught between showing support for Kody and sympathy for Christine's irritation, quietly serving as mediators in a charged and emotional atmosphere. For audiences, the conflict was more than just entertainment. It was an inside look into the human toll of unresolved dispute and the difficulty of navigating intricate family dynamics. In each testimony, each legal document, and each emotional outburst, the issue was established. This was not just a war over property, dollars, and power. It was a conflict for identity, equity, and respect. Christine's strength in standing up for herself legally exposed the extent that someone will go in order to get acknowledged within one's own household. Kody's attempts to protect the family heritage showed the tremendous pressure and responsibility shouldered by those who had households with multiple interdependent lives. The narrative evolved into a study of human resilience, compromise, and sometimes hurtful results of long-established tension. Viewers of Sister Wives and general observers alike were hooked not only by the drama, but by the universality of its messages. How frequently do we fight to be heard, even in communities where we should feel at home? How do we hold on to love, loyalty, and affiliation when our own boundaries and agency are undermined? The Brown's tale was compelling because it spoke to issues that extend beyond polygamy into the very core of every family's experience: communication, respect, and the constant negotiation of power and affection. The courtroom drama also showed how even the smallest of disagreements could snowball into a much bigger issue. A ruling over property, a small schedule conflict, or an ignored opinion could fuel months or years of pent-up anger. For the Browns, these matters all boiled down to court filings, charge testimony, and public attention, demonstrating to audiences that even within families that are based on love and commitment, unresolved tension can become insurmountable barriers. As the series progressed, it was apparent that the journey mattered as much as the destination. Christine's insistence on asserting herself, Kody's efforts to hold power while taking criticism, and the wives' subtle juggling of allegiance and compassion all exemplified the complexity of human relationships in extraordinary circumstances. The soap opera was not dramatized for TV. It was authentic, close, and ultimately human, with lessons in courage, resilience, and negotiation. For viewers, questions naturally arose. Could Christine and Kody mend after that public and emotional fight? Would the family achieve a new balance, or would the trial wars leave wounds that might never fully recover? How do you remain loyal to family and yet stand up and have your own voice, particularly when those choices impact dozens of lives connected in ways most individuals can hardly envision? These questions lingered, drawing viewers into a story that was both compelling and reflective, a story that invites empathy, contemplation, and understanding. And yet, through the tension, heartache, and adversity, there was an undertone of hope woven throughout the show. Even in conflict, the Brown's tale picked out humanity at its strongest: resilience, emotional growth, change, reminding us that even though disagreements and misunderstandings will arise, how we choose to work through them with honesty, respect, and courage can determine the state of our relationships and the success of our family ties. It is a tale of conflict and perseverance, of individual rights in conflict with family obligation, and of the thin line needed to preserve love in complicated relationships. It is a tale that challenges its viewers to consider: what is being heard in a family? How do we speak up for ourselves without breaking ties? And finally, how do families weather the storms that inevitably blow? As we enter the complete account of Kody and Christine Brown's courtroom drama, we invite you to walk with us through a tale of unvarnished emotion, public display, and personal introspection. A tale where love and discord are inseparable, where bravery is coupled with responsibility, and where the lessons derived go far beyond the courtroom. In the following sections, you'll witness the explosive beginnings, the battles over property and control, the emotional fallout within the family, the courtroom revelations, and the lessons that emerge as the family looks toward the future. It is a story of heart, struggle, and the enduring pursuit of fairness, a story that will resonate long after the final word is spoken. The Brown family's existence on Sister Wives was always one of drama, intrigue, and convoluted relationships, but nothing could possibly prepare fans for the explosive courtroom wars that would ensue between Kody Brown and wife number 3, Christine Brown. The Browns had spent years on television trying to navigate the intricacies of polygamy, combining 16 children, communal property, and a fragile hierarchy of family structures. But behind the cameras, tensions brewed silently, layer by layer, until they finally erupted into something that neither Kody nor Christine was able to keep inside. The source of the conflict went deep. Christine, who was usually depicted as the peacemaker and mediator of the family, started reflecting increasing frustration with Kody's style of leading the home. While Kody had always been extremely tight with control, almost dictatorial at times, Christine began to sense that her opinion was being pushed aside. She wasn't simply complaining about little things. She was complaining about what many saw as basic imbalances in their family and marriage dynamics. She wished to be acknowledged for her work, to have input in budgeting, and greater respect for her independence as both a wife and mother. Fans were instantly captivated by the drama as Christine started speaking more candidly in interviews and social media statuses. As opposed to the common behind-the-scenes arguments that had been solved quietly in past seasons, this time Christine was letting everyone know that she felt disregarded and overlooked. She alluded to the fact that Kody's decision-making style was too autocratic and that he did not take her opinion seriously. It wasn't about money or goods, about being heard, respected, and valued in a marriage where she had played an essential, but at times invisible role for so long. Kody, meanwhile, found himself in the middle of a balancing act that was both complicated and public. Being the head of a polygamous household, he had always insisted that the decisions he made were for the best interests of all concerned. However, As Christine's frustrations continued to cry out and became more specific, he found himself unable to adjust. The stress mounted to the point that private discussions and compromises weren't enough anymore. Disputes that previously would have been resolved in secret now spilled out into public view, with fans speculating just how deep this feud would run. The breaking point occurred when dissensions involving family property, land that had been a thorn in their sides for years, were added to overall issues of household control. Christine also grew increasingly agitated by the fact that Kody seemed to be making sole decisions regarding finances, residency, and even how family gatherings were structured. For a woman who had spent years building her family and doing household duties, this feeling of being pushed to the periphery was unbearable. What began as a fight over property soon escalated into a fight over respect, authority, and control. The instant the drama became legal, it shocked fans and media alike. Court papers confirmed that Christine had formally complained about some of Kody's handling of family assets and money as being unfair and for not being recognized. The courtroom, foreign to the Brown family, was turned into a theatrical arena where old wounds were exposed to the world. Christine's choice to take the courts into account was a turning point in the family saga. It wasn't reality TV anymore. It was a real-life court fight with real-world repercussions. Fans were stunned, and rumor went wild. Social media sites, fan pages, and gossip websites glowed with questions. Why would Christine do something so drastic? Was this the end of Kody and Christine's marriage? Would the family be able to survive this public breakdown? Each post, comment, and rumor fueled interest, making the courtroom battle one of the most popular moments in recent sister wives history. Emotionally, the stakes were extremely high. Christine's frustration was not just over money, it was very much about her sense of self-worth and autonomy. She wanted to be able to claim that she had the authority to make choices that impacted her life and her children's lives. And in the meantime, Kody had to come to terms with the fact that his leadership, previously unchallenged within the family, was being challenged in a highly public manner. All the fans watching could sense the tension, the anxiety, and the heartbreak, as two individuals who had once been involved in love and partnership were now on different sides of a courtroom. Media sources were not slow to pick up the story. Headlines screamed with phrases such as "Brown family drama turns legal" and "Christine Brown challenges Kody in court," propelling the tale onto an even larger audience. Audiences tuned in, not only to see a reality television program, but to see a real family drama played out in a high-riding legal setting. The conflict became a cultural buzz, provoking arguments regarding marriage, polygamy, family structure, and gender roles within non-traditional families. To many viewers, this was a riveting chapter in the saga of the Brown family, because it served to remind us of a basic truth. Even families that appear sitcom perfect on television may have some unresolved, festering tensions. Christine's move to pursue legal action was not a simple personal one. It represented the culmination of years of stifled resentment, unspoken effort, and emotional tension. It reminded viewers that behind the cameras, reality show celebrities struggle with real human issues, feelings, and conflicts, regardless of how entertaining their existence might seem. As the court struggle was set in motion, it was apparent that this was merely the start. What had been disagreements in private had turned into a public battle, leading to months of courtroom hearings, charged encounters, and tearful disclosures. The fans couldn't avert their gaze. Each interview, each court document leak, and each media report fueled the flames, keeping the viewers on tenterhooks and interested in the result. In so many ways, the fiery start of this court case was a mirror to the viewer, a reflection of how power, control, and communication failures can build up, even in families who on the surface seem solid. Christine Brown's bravery to walk into a courtroom was both a personal protest and a theatrical notice to the world. When pushed aside for too long, even a reality television star will battle for attention, equity, and respect. By the end of Section 1, the drama has already established a high-stakes, emotionally charged scenario that had left viewers eagerly awaiting answers. The Brown family's sojourn into legal turmoil was no longer mere entertainment. It had become a primer on family dynamics, agency, and what happens when tension gets allowed to percolate for too long. The fans eagerly tuned in to the next installment, curious to see how Kody would react, what would be revealed in court, and if Christine's dramatic action would eventually coerce permanent change into the family she had helped create. The Brown family compound had always been a source of pride, security, and togetherness, or at least the illusion of togetherness for the Sister Wives clan. Reaching across vast expanses of property, dotted with houses, land, and investments, it was something more than real estate. It was the fruit of decades of effort, sacrifice, and family cooperation. But what was once a source of pride gradually became one of tension, and in the ensuing drama between Kody and Christine, it became the focal point of contention. Christine Brown, Kody's third wife in his polygamous family, started to feel more and more pushed aside when it came to making decisions about the property. Her complaints weren't trivial. She had worked heavily to raise her children, take care of household chores, and support family finances. However, with all that she brought, she felt her ideas and rights were always neglected. To Christine, it wasn't merely a matter of having a voice. It was about respect, fairness, and being noticed. The feud reached its boiling point when court documents disclosed that Christine alleged that Kody was dominating, making unilateral choices that impacted not just her life, but also the health and future of her children. She cited Kody for using his role as the patriarch of the family to continue controlling properties and land, giving her little voice. For her, these were not trivial squabbles. They were intrusions into her wife and mother rights, and they had tangible effects on her daily life. At the same time, Kody and his lawyers presented a much different picture. Kody testified that his decisions about family property were made with everyone's best interests at heart. He claimed that handling a polygamous home, 4 wives, 18 children, and numerous properties, was immensely complicated and needed close supervision. In his opinion, decisions made unilaterally were sometimes unavoidable to avoid conflicts, safeguard investments, and keep the family heritage intact. Kody's defense pointed out that his intention was not to ostracize Christine, but ensure stability in an already chaotic household setup. The courtroom quickly turned into an emotional battlefield. Each hearing was an intense moment of drama, with Christine and her attorneys introducing proof of marginalization, and Kody justifying the need for his tactics. Christine's attorneys claimed that she had been excluded from key financial decisions for years, that her rights were curtailed in the interests of maintaining a hierarchical system in which Kody was in charge. They pointed to times when Christine had been left out of discussions regarding land management, real estate sales, and significant family expenses, circumstances affecting her children's security and her independence. Conversely, Kody's attorneys emphasized the special problems of shepherding a polygamous family. They positioned Kody as a guardian, not a tyrant, someone who was trying to keep tabs on a multifaceted web of personal relationships while seeking to preserve the family's collective wealth in perpetuity. The defense positioned Kody's moves not as controlling, but as prudent, with a vision of long-term preservation of assets and continuity for the entire family. But while the arguments may have been enticing in print, it was the emotional subtext that really grabbed hold of audiences. Court observers, and by extension, the audience following along on social media, could sense the tension emanating from both camps. Christine's irritability, her rage, and the despair of being ignored were beautifully played off the defense posture of Kody and his assertions that he was doing what was best for the family. Each time they spoke in court, uncovered the fissures in the family structure that had been concealed behind cameras for years. The public swooped in promptly, dissecting each word uttered, each facial expression, each reaction. Social media swirled with opinion. Some applauded Christine, commending her for standing up for herself and her children. Others supported Kody, contending that leadership of such a complicated family system was a gigantic responsibility and necessitated difficult choices. The courtroom drama was more than a courtroom case. It was a prism through which viewers were able to examine issues of fairness, authority, and family relationships. The stakes were high. For Christine, this wasn't simply a matter of land or property. It was about claiming her voice and guaranteeing her children's futures. For Kody, the lawsuit was about defending the family heritage that he had spent decades constructing, maintaining stability, and holding sway in a domestic arrangement that is both legally and socially unusual. The courtroom became a site where these clashing priorities clashed, generating moments of raw drama and heartbreak. One of the most dramatic parts of the legal fight was how it revealed the emotional cost of running a polygamous household. Every choice, every dispute over property, was magnified because of the special dynamics of the family. Where in a conventional household one spouse might quietly negotiate, in the Brown household every decision impacted multiple households, children, and old relationships. Christine's battle in court brought to light not just her struggle for equity, but also the inevitable difficulties of striking an equilibrium between individual rights and shared family obligations in a compound, multiple spouse situation. During the proceedings, the tension was electric. Christine's testimony was filled with moments of raw honesty and frustration, describing how she felt marginalized and helpless. Kody's reactions were a manifestation of the pressure he had been put under for so long, attempting to juggle various interests, keep his families together, and hold himself up publicly. With each hearing, each deposition, and each argument, the ferocity of the battle intensified, with fans hanging on to developments and commentary online. The courtroom drama also had a ripple effect on the rest of the Brown family. Other children, wives, and extended family members had to juggle their allegiances, frequently taking sides or working behind the scenes as mediators. Social media blew up with rumors about how these court battles would influence relationships, asset divisions, and holiday gatherings. The stakes were not purely monetary. Emotions, trust, and even the very fabric of the Brown family were on the line. In the end, this fight over property and power was about so much more than who owned it. It was about respect, voice, and justice. Christine's decision to sue brought an end to the Brown family saga, declaring that personal complaints could no longer be closeted from the public. For audiences, the case provided a front-row seat to a series of enormous pressures on a family, uncovering the human side of court cases, the intricacies of polygamy, and the repercussions of unrelenting tension. By the conclusion of this chapter, it was apparent that the property issue was not merely a court battle, it was a dramatic saga of exposed weaknesses, tensions, and the ongoing quest for respect and justice. Everyone was on the edge of their seats, waiting for the next installment, questioning how Kody would react, what surprise revelations would be revealed, and if Christine's bravery in the courtroom could tip the scales of power within the family. The courtroom wars between Kody and Christine Brown were never ever about property or family structure. They rapidly grew to be a narrative that bled out into the public sphere, far past the confines of the courtroom. What could have been kept hidden in most families became a multifaceted spectacle that impacted not just the Brown family, but the fan base that had invested their lives in them for more than 10 years. For Sister Wives fans, it was like observing a slow-motion emotional earthquake, rattling the roots of a family that they came to know so well. Since the initial filings, it was apparent that the drama between Christine and Kody would have far-reaching implications for all those who were associated with them. Social media burst forth almost overnight. Forums, Instagram discussions, Reddit forums, and fan sites flashed with predictions, speculation, and anguished debate. Each new development of the court hearings was analyzed and exaggerated. Audience members debated hotly as to whom the right belonged, who was being unjust, and whether Kody or Christine merited sympathy from the public. The narrative was no longer simply about family assets. It had evolved into a cultural discourse regarding fairness, power, and family relationships. Christine's children were caught in a very precarious situation. They both admired and cherished their father on the one hand, but saw their mother fight to be heard in a system where sometimes decisions were seemingly outside her control on the other. The emotional cost for the children was clear. They had to juggle feelings of loyalty and fear and uncertainty, balancing allegiance to both Kody, their patriarch figure, and to Christine, their mother. For these kids, family gatherings and daily interactions became strained and charged with unspoken feeling. They couldn't just take sides, they had to navigate a thin line, attempting to keep relationships with both adults while sorting through their own confusion, anger, and sadness. Kody had a very different type of fallout. Fans who had long supported him as the family patriarch began to voice criticism, accusing him of controlling behavior and questioning his approach to leadership. Headlines and social media posts questioned whether his decisions were fair or overly authoritarian. Supporters, however, defended him, emphasizing the complexities of managing a polygamous household and the difficulty of balancing the needs and rights of multiple wives and children simultaneously. The web debate continued unabated, staging a public spectacle of opinion that put even greater pressure on a situation already charged. Each step taken by Kody, every word issued by him, was scrutinized, debated, and picked apart by a worldwide audience of millions. Even the other wives were badly hit. Robin Brown, the last wife remaining to still reside in the primary home with Kody, had to tread the emotional minefield very warily. She was also observed in some of her interviews as trying to intervene, remaining true to Kody but being concerned about Christine's welfare. Mary Brown, who had been estranged from the internal mechanisms of the current family dynamics for a long time, was also drawn into the drama as she attempted to keep her past life and continued family connections going while observing the legal battles. In a family where feelings were already at fever pitch, even the smallest encounter was full of tension. The wives were not just spectators, they were players in an extremely intricate emotional environment, and their reactions and behaviors contributed to how the family drama unfolded in public. The public spectacle wasn't confined to social media. Fans of reality television shows started tuning in to episodes of Sister Wives with fresh eyes. Each tense exchange, each uncomfortable stare, and each backroom altercation appeared linked to the courtroom struggles. Once harmless interactions were being viewed in a different light. A situation where Christine seemed distressed during a family meal was picked apart as proof of the tension that resulted from Kody's choices. A remark Kody made to a television production crew regarding responsibility and leadership was seen as a reaction to Christine's attacks from her filings in court. The boundaries between television drama and actual drama were blurred, and the story became both gripping and disturbing. Media outlets played up the consequences too. News reports and articles covered the emotional confessions, dramatic courtroom moments, and heated exchanges between Kody and Christine. The news covered beyond the usual audience of reality television, gaining mainstream attention and generating debate regarding family law, polygamy, and parental rights. Even occasional fans who had never really cared about the Browns were captivated by the drama that was playing out. For many, the saga was an education in human feeling, conflict, and the payback for unresolved anger. Off the field, the emotional cost to the family was severe. Daily members of the Brown family were forced to deal with the aftermath of the court fights. Children fretted about how their relationships would be impacted. The wives walked a tightrope of competing loyalty, trying to be supportive of Christine while being deferential to Kody. Kody himself was under tremendous stress, straddling his right to defend himself and his choices with the well-being of his family. Every small decision, whether to attend a hearing, make a social media post, or talk to the press, had repercussions, sometimes escalating the drama instead of soothing it. Audiences were especially interested in the emotional veracity of the drama. Unlike scripted television, the Browns' conflict was genuine, and the audience experienced tension, dread, and heartache vicariously, as if they were one of the family themselves. Internet forums hummed with sympathy, criticism, and rumor. Every turn of events was debated in detail. Who would prevail in the court battles? How would the kids handle it? Would the family be reunited after the court hearings, or were these rents irreversible? The tension drew fans back day by day, episode by episode, watching a family that had been sundered by strife but still struggled to hold together some semblance of cohesion. The most compelling feature of the fallout, arguably, was how deeply it was felt within the family's relationships. Friendships and alignments changed. Moments of trust were tenuous. Choices that had previously appeared straightforward, such as property usage, holiday celebrations, or co-parenting, were now subject to court hearings and ongoing conflict. The courtroom fights functioned as a magnifying glass, bringing into focus cracks in communication, loyalty, and control that had existed for many years, but were never consistently exposed to the public eye. In the end, the courtroom wars between Kody and Christine became more than a matter of law. They became a turning page in the Brown family saga. Viewers came to witness the fallout from simmering tensions, the ripple effects on children and extended family, and how public exposure intensified private discord. The tale underscored the intricacy of life in a polygamous family, where feelings, duty, and allegiance shift at any given moment, and legal disputes can turn personal conflicts into public spectacle. By the end of the section, it was obvious that the aftermath had generated a multifaceted story, interweaving emotional suffering, familial devotion, and public spectacle. Christine's willingness to take Kody on legally, Kody's efforts to hold on to control, and the wives' careful balancing acts of allegiances forged a plot that intrigued viewers and kept them hooked on the Browns saga. The courtroom fights were merely a chapter. The repercussions would go on to shape relationships, public opinion, and the family's destiny for years to come. The courtroom turned into a stage where the personal tragedies of the Brown family were exposed for everyone to witness. As Kody Brown and Christine Brown's legal battle went on, astonishing truths came to light that left viewers and fans totally shocked. What started out as a disagreement about property and home rule immediately escalated into something much deeper. A stark laying bare of feelings, secrets, and years of pent-up anger that had been kept locked away from the public for years. Christine appeared in court with a blend of resoluteness and vulnerability. She outlined the ways in which she had been manipulated and kept out of key family decisions, highlighting that her wife and motherhood roles had frequently been downplayed. Throughout the years, she alleged, her advice was dismissed in issues that pertained directly to her children, her home, and her own life. These were not minor lapses. Christine told the picture of a wife who had lived through years of emotional tension, silent anger, and invisibility in the family home. Audiences observed intently as Christine recounted incidents that displayed just how much pressure had been building underneath. She shared instances of Kody making decisions regarding land, money, and family schedules without inquiring about her opinion, or ignoring her issues when she tried to speak up for herself. Fans were shocked by these revelations as they revealed a side of the Brown family that was never seen on TV before. Christine's willingness to speak so freely on these matters in court lent an air of sincerity and unvarnished emotion to the drama that couldn't be avoided. Kody, on the other hand, worked strenuously to defend himself. He cited the gigantic undertaking of caring for a large polygamous family, insisting that his choices were made with the aim of safeguarding the legacy of the family and providing stability for all the wives and children. To Kody, leadership meant making difficult decisions, and what may have seemed to be overbearing tendencies were actually a necessity in a family consisting of many interdependent clans. He depicted himself as a guardian, one who was attempting to juggle dueling needs while keeping the family together. Legal analysts covering the case commented that this was so much more than any normal argument about property or money. At its essence, it was a struggle for respect, authority, and independence. Christine was fighting to establish her rights in an institution where her voice had been eroded, and Kody was seeking to preserve his authority in a multifaceted family setting. The courtroom became a testing ground that laid bare not only conflicts over money or property, but essential questions of control, influence, and acknowledgement in a marriage. The courtroom scenes themselves were fraught with tension and emotion. There were times of weeping, shouting, and long silences heavy with unspoken tension, times that conveyed more than any legal case ever could. Christine's anger and emotional fragility were palpable, and viewers at home or reading about it online could feel the ferocity of every interchange. Kody's answers, defensive but sincere, evidenced a man living in overload, attempting to explain choices that had caused significant rifts within the family. Audiences were especially riveted when previous family choices were analyzed in court. Transcripts of moments that may have seemed inconsequential in everyday life, a squabble over real estate purchase, a household configuration choice, or even coordinating family activities were picked apart like a bug dissected in a lab. These apparently trivial incidents were revealed to have snowballed into full-blown disputes, illustrating how unresolved issues can build up over a period of time to produce a pressure cooker situation in a family. For most viewers, these are exclusive glimpses into the working of polygamous family life, revealing just how intricate and emotionally charged this could be. The courtroom also highlighted the mental burden that these persistent disputes had placed on the family. Christine described the stress, anxiety, and emotional drain that came from being ignored and excluded. Kody also shared the tension of having to constantly facilitate disagreements, make important choices, and exercise control with the added pressure of being under the public eye. The public witnessed not only legal battles, but also human frailty, the weariness, sadness, and terror that accompany attempting to maintain a huge, complicated family together in highly unusual circumstances. Another surprise that shocked fans was the dynamic among the wives. Although Christine was in the middle of the conflict, her legal moves indirectly affected the dynamic with Meri and Robyn. Issues of loyalty, justice, and allegiance within the home were raised. Robyn, being Kody's last wife, had to tread this delicate terrain gingerly, measuring her support for Kody against her sympathy for Christine's complaints. Meri, somewhat detached from the daily tensions, also found herself re-examining her own relationships with Kody and Christine, in light of courtroom disclosures. These layers of personal strain gave depth to the legal dispute, transforming it into a multifaceted family drama. Media coverage magnified every stunned nuance. Stories, Blog entries and social media posts broke down each statement, every courtroom interaction, and every emotional outburst. Headlines like Christine Brown opens up family secrets and Kody comes out fighting in court drama attracted attention nationwide, turning the courthouse fight into a national debate. Fans argued endlessly online, breaking down each secret and debating who was right, who was being unfair, and how the family would be able to heal from the aftermath. Maybe the most powerful thing about this courtroom drama was the way that it humanized the Brown family. Reality TV typically displays drama, but the courtroom proceedings showed raw, unfiltered human emotion. Viewers could relate to Christine's anger and Kody's responsibility, knowing that both parties were dealing with valid issues, but from different vantage points. The case illustrated the emotional nuances of life in a polygamous family, revealing how years of minor slights, misunderstandings, and disagreements will build to create conflicts that end up in the courts. After all these courtroom bombshells, there could be no doubt that the fight was about something much more than property or money. It was about identity, independence, dignity, and the struggle to be heard in a very complex family dynamic. Christine's courage in exposing her grievances and Kody's determination to stand up for his method gave us a harrowing emotional saga that engaged viewers and kept them hooked on every courtroom update. For audience members, these were not merely revelations for entertainment purposes, they were a lesson in human nature, relationships, and the repercussions of unresolved conflict. The courtroom was a mirror reflecting the complex dynamic between power, justice, and emotional well-being in a family that was far from typical. The drama was raw, authentic, and unforgettable, making viewers impatiently wait for the next installment of the saga, trying to imagine what surprises, reconciliations, or more clashes may ensue in the continued narrative of Kody and Christine Brown. The courtroom battle between Kody and Christine Brown was not just a family feud, it was a theatrical spectacle that laid bare the complex and frequently delicate dynamics of polygamous family. For fans who had watched the Browns on Sister Wives for years, it provided a glimpse into the pressures, conflicts, and emotional struggles that lie behind the skillfully edited reality television scenes. Although the legal conflict was dramatic and tense, it also featured vital lessons on communication, compromise, and the struggle for individual autonomy in dysfunctional family systems. The key to the story was Christine's insistence on upholding her rights. Having spent years feeling disenfranchised and excluded in family matters, she took the bold step of going to court to air her grievances. This wasn't merely a decision about property, finances, or status, it was about respect, acknowledgement, and self-worth. The fans could perceive that Christine's move was a strong want for affirmation as an equal partner in the family, a voice to be heard, and a mother whose opinions must be heeded. Her fight in court became an emblem of empowerment, showing how one individual's braveness to fight back for herself can spread and affect the whole family dynamic. Kody, on the other hand, exemplified a different struggle. As the head of a large polygamous household, he was under enormous pressure to keep the peace while juggling the conflicting needs and wants of multiple wives and kids. His determination to guard the family heritage was born of a sincere desire to preserve years of labor, assets, and emotional stake. But his method regularly introduced tension, as the distinction between protection and control blurred. Kody's experience highlighted the difficulties of leadership within non-traditional family units, where fairness, authority, and emotional sensitivity must regularly be walked upon eggshells. The courtroom struggle highlighted the fact that fights within polygamous households are never one-dimensional. Choices regarding property, money, and domestic organization become entangled with feelings, background, and established relationships. Each step, each statement, and each choice has a heavy hand, not just on the current family, but on the extended household group. The Browns saga depicted how the slightest differences, if not sorted, can add up and blow into major wars that attract public attention and judicial intervention. For audience members, the tale served more than drama. It gave access to human emotion and resilience. Christine's strength and determination illustrated the value of standing by oneself in the face of colossal personal and societal pressure. Kody's struggle to balance his obligations underscored the challenges of leadership, specifically when there are conflicting agendas and intricate family dynamics to deal with. Their combined tale provided a realistic picture of conflict, demonstrating that within families, large or otherwise unconventional, no clear-cut solutions exist. Each decision has repercussions and every move impacts several lives. The legal case also provided an insight into the value of negotiating and compromising. Though the courtroom is generally viewed as a setting for winners and losers, in this instance it was also a room where both individuals were compelled to face their differences, clearly articulate their needs, and consider other people's viewpoints. Christine needed to clearly state her concerns in a formal legal environment, whereas Kody needed to justify his actions and show that he was being responsible. This back and forth emphasized the way even acutely emotional conflicts can also be moments of potential growth, comprehension, and resolution. But the narrative was not merely inspirational. The public nature of the courtroom struggle increased tension and facilitated finality. Private family feuds that could perhaps have been worked out in private were torn apart on television, in newspapers, and before an audience of millions of fans. Each word was parsed, each response examined, and each headline argued over. This degree of public exposure inserted another layer of trouble into a situation that was already precarious, illustrating the way public criticism can amplify personal disagreements and have long-term effects on relationships. There were lessons in the power of voice and resilience, even through heartache and tension. Christine's insistence on addressing the issues head-on and on bringing in legal professionals when appropriate evinced a commitment to fairness and justice. Kody's reaction, though problematic, showed the challenge of juggling authority with compassion and the strain of keeping harmony in a home with so many competing demands. Their exchanges indicted the necessity of communication, respect, and recognition in keeping family ties going, particularly in non-traditional forms where the dynamics necessarily are complicated. Supporters were left to wonder what the future would hold for the Brown family. Would the courtroom fights translate to common ground between Kody and Christine? Would lessons gained through the legal process become more equitable decision-making and improved communication within the home? Or would the conflict leave lasting wounds, divisions that may never completely heal? These questions kept viewers deeply invested, not only in the ultimate fate of the legal process, but in the continuing emotional lives of the family members themselves. The tale also posed some broader questions regarding the nature of polygamous families and their special challenges. Within families where more than one spouse and several children are entangled, conflicts multiply easily, touching every member in the entire family circle. Christine and Kody's fight showed how power dynamics, emotional needs, and family obligations cross each other in ways that can be hard to navigate without careful diplomacy, empathy, and respect. For viewers, this added richness to the show, taking it from mere reality TV soap operas to an exploration of complicated human relations. Before the courtroom dust had finally settled, the legal battle already had a lasting effect. It has revealed weaknesses, brought about introspection, and shown the emotional cost of unsettled family disputes. Fans saw firsthand how courage, resilience, and negotiation can transform family life even in the darkest of times. Christine's boldness and Kody's protective nature forged a narrative that was both heart-wrenching, riveting, and fundamentally human. Ultimately, the saga of Christine Brown and Kody Brown was a reminder that families are never easy, and that individual transformation is often born out of struggle and conflict. The courtroom battles were merely a part of an ongoing narrative of love, commitment, and tension within an intricate family dynamic. For the audience, the drama taught them lessons in advocating for oneself, the value of communication, and the long-term strength of human emotion. As fans reflected on the case, they were left with lingering questions. How would the Brown family rebuild trust and balance after such a public dispute? Could Christine's assertiveness and Kody's protective nature coexist in a healthier, more equitable dynamic? And perhaps most importantly, what does the story teach us about navigating conflicts in our own families, regardless of size or structure? One thing was certain: the court battle between Kody and Christine Brown would go down in Sister Wives history as one of the most hot-button and emotional plotlines ever. It wasn't merely a reality TV soap opera, it was an epic tale of bravery, disagreement, and the constant attempt to balance power with deference, duty with self-preservation, and family harmony with individuality. For the Browns, however, the future was unclear, but what was learned in the courtrooms about communication, fairness, and emotional honesty held out the promise that the family would become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. For audiences, The story was not only entertaining but a rich examination of human behavior, family structure, and the difficulties of living openly in the public eye. At times, life reminds us that even the most intimate relationships can be strained, and that the individuals closest to us have the potential to hurt us either intentionally or through circumstance. During those quiet, hard times, it's simple to feel lost or angry, but there is also a chance to observe what really matters: kindness, patience, and the desire to understand each other. Tales such as these remind us that progress is frequently forged in adversity, and understanding arises when we step back and hear with our hearts. We all have times when forgiveness, or courage, or telling the truth seems too great a leap, but it is in those decisions, small and great, that we learn our own strength. What is most important is not perfection, but the attempt to keep space for love, even when it is messy, and to give second chances to others and ourselves. Perhaps today, take a few quiet moments to think, to breathe, and to ponder the tender ways that we can cultivate connection, empathy, and hope in the lives we touch.